Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Kansas City Jazz trumpeter Chalis O'Neal. He talked to us about his new debut 2021 CD called Flirting. He opened up about this triumphant new recording, life in the COVID world, new live shows coming up, and so much more. Enjoy.
What's happened over this time, but yeah, just getting the album out, man. Super happy, yeah. But I've been good.
That's the thing, you know, and I guess that's really the whole thing that's going on with you. Your debut album is out, and it's all over the place on all digital platforms.
Yes, sir.
Flirting. Talk to me a little bit about how it feels for this to come out now during, you know, the end of this pandemic, and just it's your debut and all of that. How does it feel?
Well, man, it feels amazing. It's actually, I feel free, and I know that sounds kind of weird because I get to do what I love to do and play music, but actually releasing an album, I haven't felt this free, honestly, like since childhood days. I know that sounds kind of cheesy, but it's honestly the truth.
How long has this album been in the works?
I was, to be honest, this is my debut, man. It's kind of been my whole life, honestly, but definitely the last 3 to 4 years, I want to say it's been a process of it. A lot of the themes and stuff was inspired by certain events that happened in 2015 and 16, but definitely within the last 4 or 5 years.
So, you know, you really kind of go, I mean, musically speaking, there's a lot of things that are going on. You go from traditional to modern and all kinds of things in between. What were you really going for? What would you say your voice is on this album?
I would say it's the real me. When I say that, I've gigged professionally around town for like the last 10 years, maybe even 15 years. But honestly, I would say this is like really my come out party. It's basically me telling my side of the story, all my original tunes. I have another song that was written by Desmond, a good friend of mine on the album. But besides that, everything was all original. It's really a coming out party. It's a metaphoric speaking of saying flirting. I'm not necessarily flirting with a woman. I'm flirting with you musically, ideally. That's why the album's not really a long album, but that's really the theme of it. It's kind of a come out party. It's like, hey, you know, I'm flirting with you. I see you at a club or a party. I'm flirting with you musically.
So I guess that's the thing too, the timing of this. You know, we've been in lockdown since March of 2020. Things are starting to open up. There's more live opportunities. Did you pick this time deliberately to release it?
I did actually, yeah. Because I wanted to do it during the pandemic, but I kind of really wanted not a fresh start. I don't want the pandemic to kind of hover it. I kind of really wanted it to be, nothing holding it back, no restrictions. I really wanted the clubs and bars to be open to perform the material, to be honest.
During this pandemic, we all had time to be with ourselves and to be reflective. What did you learn about yourself during this time that's going to make you stronger as you release this album and perform it live?
Oh, well, I noticed that the pandemic was actually a great wake-up call, man. It was the best wake-up call, good or bad, because I was in the bartending industry for a long time, and that's honestly how I made my living. And I've really done a lot of growing from bartending with people skills and socializing. And then when that got taken away from the pandemic and my gigs, too, as well, I was like, wow, it's like I have nothing right now at the moment. You know, I was in my apartment by myself, but I still have my music. You know, I still have my horn. I still have my keyboard. So I was like, yeah, that's never really turned its back on me. And of course, the gig's gone, but I always had the freedom to play music anytime I wanted to, technically. So yeah, that was really the kickstart of like, hey, I have to get this album out after the pandemic, 2021, no excuses.
You know, the one thing that's good about talking with musicians now that things are kind of opening up, talk to me a little bit about Kansas City. What you see is like the resiliency and strength of Kansas City as we rebound with coming out of this whole COVID thing.
Well, I kind of think a lot of us we all took it for granted, like the personal stuff about just being alive and just living your life, and that's live music and arts in general, too. I would say Kansas City is definitely the heart of America, but jazz and all that is rooted deeply in Kansas City, the blues, too, as well. So when the pandemic hit and all those clubs closed, we lost a lot of culture, you know what I mean? Like all the music went away, and with Kansas City being a jazz town and absolutely a music city, I think once things opened up, I think people were kind of like, wow, we really have something special with that. So I think a lot of musicians, I can't speak for everybody, but a lot of musicians are really hungry to play right now, and I think that's a good thing.
Speaking of, what's your itinerary look like? What's your life look like as we move forward with gigs opening up and a new album out?
Well, November was booked up, and September and October as well. I'm really just now a full-fledged musician, full-time now. I do stuff in the mornings, part-time, but mainly nights and weekends are completely open for music, and that was really the silver lining I thought from the pandemic was, you know, you need to do what you do best. You need to do what you love to do. That's music. So I would say that was definitely the Kickstarter for me, is getting my music out and performing and giving my all. So now I'm exclusively open for music nights and weekends.
What do you ultimately hope the listener that buys or downloads this album gets from your debut jazz release to the world?
I want them to understand that it's like my personal story. Like, if you look at the track listing, there's an arc that's going on through it from the first track to the last track. You know what I mean? There's really a build-up through all this. A lot of this was driven from personal relationships in the past, being out in the bar scene, meeting people, and the album's called Flirting, and just flirting with different people. It's really just, like I said earlier, it's a come-out party. I want people to hear the real me. And all the original music is rooted from my personal life.
So right now, tell everybody where they can actually pick this up, just kind of your plug for the album and anything that might be coming up for you here in the near future.
Gotcha. You can find the album on all digital platforms. It could be Spotify, iTunes, Pick Your Poison. It's pretty much on everything, even YouTube as well. So if you don't have a streaming device, you can just watch it through YouTube as well. With that, I'm also performing tomorrow at the Black Box with a good friend of mine, Amber Flutie Nastiness Underwood, who's a phenomenal flute player and a good friend of mine. And we decided to collab on the show, so you can hear a lot of the material tomorrow, too, as well, live at the Black Box at 10:30 p.m.
Mr. O'Neill, appreciate you reaching out. It's so great to see cats like you putting new material out into the world. Good luck with everything as we move forward.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest cats in Kansas City and spots all over America, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Mr. O'Neill for his time, music, and stories. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
All my people, all my African, it's black excellence, baby.
Neon Jazz.